Participant, everybody, дорогие участники, здравствуйте, добро пожаловать. У нас будет английский, поэтому далее я, как председатель с российской стороны, открываю эту секцию, буду говорить по-английски. Dear participant, allow me to greet and thank you for your interest to our seminar. Before my speech, I would like kindly bring your attention to some technical points. First of them, please switch off your microphone. Yeah, thank you very much. In order to maintain proper technical support to the meeting, I also ask you to switch off your cameras when you're not speaking. This in case our connection will be our connection and our seminar will be more faster through internet. So I invite you to join our parallel live stream on YouTube channel via link which will sent you yesterday. Yes, was sent you yesterday by my colleague from ministry. This alternative possibility to connect and observe our seminar if you not plan to ask a question and some others. This YouTube channel start immediately. Also, we have a chat. Chat for question will be enabled right before the start of the testimonial session. It will be approximately up to 1 hour later. So let me start. Dear colleagues, our seminar today is dedicated to the opportunities and challenges of academic mobility between the Russian and the European Union. One of the main purposes to this present academic mobility program available and discuss them. The development of academic mobility, both domestic and international mobility, is one of the priorities in scientific and educational sector of Russian Ministry and some other funds in Russian Federation who support science activity and research. Over the past decade, serious efforts have been made in Russian Federation to develop academic mobility and international cooperation in the field of science and technology through various programs and direct state support, like, for example, National Project of Science and some other program. Most important and famous from this instrument is Mega Grant program. This Mega Grant program are most effective tools for support mobilities, academic mobilities, and for possibility of visit famous scientists to Russian labs. The main objective of the Mega Grant program are attraction of the world innovative scientists, including our compatriots living abroad, our Russian scientists living abroad, to Russian university research institutes and state research centers. Creation of scientific laboratories capable to create complete to leading laboratories in the world. We can do leading laboratory in the world by inviting famous scientists here to the Russian side. Obtained world-class scientific results. The most results public in Q1 and Q2 Web of Science and some other database, providing condition for improving quality of scientific and pedagogical staff. From the European side, the implementation of support of the mobility scientific personnel both within the European Union and international level carried out by European Framework Program Horizon 2020. Indeed, special attention must pay to Maria Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowship. This kind of project are to encourage academic mobility additional to research activities in attracting young scientists, and not only young scientists, to join research and innovation activities. I will know this program, and my colleagues from Marie Curie alumni also here in seminar. The my funding mechanism for supporting the mobility of scientific personnel, both within EU and abroad, by the Marie Curie Skłodowska Action Program is very well, and today will be discussed later by my European colleagues. The Russian citizen Russian scientists also can participate in this program, and more than the program alumni community is successfully established and functioned in Russian Federation. The president of Alumni Association of Russian in Russia will be also report today during our seminar, and full details of this program will be presented later by our European colleagues and participant himself. I'm honored to turn the floor over my European colleagues and co-chair of this seminar, Laurent Bouchereau. He is Minister, Chancellor, Head of Science and Technology Section, European Union Delegation in Russian Federation. Laurent, please take the floor.
Thank you, Andrei, and good afternoon to everybody. It's a great pleasure to welcome everybody on the side of the EU side to this webinar dedicated to the researchers' mobility. Researchers' mobility is a key component of our European research area, where we are trying to facilitate mobility both within the European Union, but also between the EU and the rest of the world. At EU level, we have a large research and innovation program called Horizon 2020. This is about 10 billion euro of investment per year, equivalent to 800 billion ruble, and about 10% of the total investment in research and innovation at European level. Horizon 2020 is divided in three main pillars: excellent science, industrial leadership, and societal challenges. The pillars, industrial leadership and societal challenges, are mostly top-down. That means that we launch calls on very well-defined issues and emerging technologies, calling for the best consortium to compete. And we sometimes launch coordinated calls with partner countries, like for instance with Russia. We have done this in the field of civil aviation and health. Excellence Science pillar has funding for the European Research Council, which provides very large grants to individual scientists in all the fields of science. The main criteria for selection is excellence, and it's a little bit like the mega grant program that will be presented today. I'm glad to report that up to now, 56 Russian nationals have been able to receive ERC grants. Most of them were already in the EU when they applied. Another large part of investment under excellent science is towards research infrastructures. And this is where, for instance, we launched recently a very large program called Kremlin Plus, which aims at strengthening the mega science facilities in Russia and increasing the links with EU counterparts. Finally, this is where we have the funding for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, and I will not say more now, as this will be the main focus of the next presentations. Overall, the Russian participation in Horizon 2020 is very strong. Russia is in the top 5 of the partner countries. However, it's down compared to the previous program where Russia was top 2. So I hope that in the context of the next program, which will start at the beginning of 2021, it will be called Horizon Europe, that Russia will be able to get back on the podium. With this, I would like to thank all those who have accepted to speak today and wish everyone a very lively webinar. And now back to you, Andrei, to introduce the first speaker. Thank you.
Aran, thank you very much. Dear participant, I'm very glad to introduce first speakers who present report about the Russian mega grant program. Is Alexei Somin, who is the Deputy Director of the Department of State Science and Technology Policy, Ministry of Science and Higher Education. Alexei, please.
Dear colleagues, good afternoon. I would like to inform you about the Mega Grants program, what was launched 10 years ago in April 2010. This is a program for international cooperation of Russian universities and scientific organizations with world-class scientists and leading research and education centers. The National Project Science of a most important document for ensuring a technological breakthrough for Russia. It was adopted in late 2018 for the following 6 years. One of the goals of a National Project Science is creation of an appealing work environment for Russian and foreign leading scientists and promising young researchers. We are talking about unhampered international mobility of academic professionals, about their career growth in selected fields regardless of the region of residence, about targeted financial support of young aspiring researchers. Next slide, please. The purpose of the program is creation of laboratories for conducting cutting-edge research in Russian universities and scientific organizations under supervision of world-class scientists. Main objective of the Mega Grants program: conducting advanced research projects, training highly qualified academic professionals, stimulation of inflow of young people to science, education, and high technologies, creation of stable links with leading international research and educational centers, creation of conditions for strengthening mobility of scientists and young professionals, accumulation of experience by young professionals during work with leading scientists, and completion of internships in major research and education centers. Next slide, please. To implement the Mega Grants program, 7 competitions have been conducted. The participants of the competition were Russian and foreign scientists occupying the leading position of the world. The program has been running for 10 years, but it still attracts significant interest from the international academic community. The distinctive feature of the Mega Grants program competition is international expert evaluation in accordance with the global practice. To conduct expert evaluation, we collaborate with such prominent organizations as European University Association, Association of Universities and Higher Education Institutes of Germany, Flemish University Association, International Bureau of German Federal Ministry of Education, American Charitable Foundation for the Development of Information Technology for Education and Science, National Science Foundation of the USA, and number of others. The decision of the winners of the competition are adopted by the specially designated Mega Grants Council. The council consists of most renowned scientists, including members of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Next slide, please. Since the beginning of the Mega Grants program, 270 2 laboratories have been created and are now successfully working in 104 scientific and educational institutes of Russia. Well, laboratories are supervised by researchers from 32 countries, including Russia. 106 laboratories are managed by leading scientists from 14 European Union countries. Next slide, please. The mega grant program nurtures training of world-class academic professionals. It stimulates the flow of young people to science education and high technologies. Every year, 2,500 young researchers under 39 years of age participate in the implementation of a project within the mega grants program. This number comprises 65% of a total number of staff members of laboratories. Next slide, please. Over the course of an implementation of a scientist research project supervised by leading scientists, young researchers have in fact become the main propelling force of the created laboratories. Since 2018, the employees of the laboratories have written and defended more than 1,000 dissertations. The academic productivity of the laboratories also manifests itself in large number of publications and obtained patents. Over the 10 years of the implementation of the program, more than 7,000 papers have been published in journals indexed by Web of Science core collection. About a half of the papers were published in first quartile journals. More than 1,400 patents have been obtained. Next slide, please. On 15 May 2020, the ministry announced the age competition within the mega grants program to conduct research projects starting in 2021. Within the competition, about 35 projects are expected to be approved for funding to support the creation of world-class laboratories. Application for participation in the competition can be submitted in the domains of studies according to the classification provided by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The mandatory condition for participation in the competition are where leading scientists should be present in the laboratory for at least 90 days every year, where leading scientists should organize internships for undergraduate and postgraduate students in the laboratory at least 30 days every year. The application deadline of a competition for mega grants is on the 3rd August 2020. The results of competition will be concluded by 15 December 2020. Next slide, please. More details on the procedure and conditions of a new competition for mega grants can be found on the website of the program. Any request can be sent to the shown email address. Finally, I would like to invite leading scientists to participate in the mega grants competition. The famous Russian writer Anton Chekhov once said, "There is no a national science or a national multiplication chart. What is national is not scientific anymore. With quite the principle of Russian scientific policy today. Russia is open for international academic community and offers interesting projects and programs to scientists from all around the world. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Alexei. As we explained earlier, we will not take questions now. We will open the chats for questions around 3:15 when we start the testimonials. And then we will collect the questions and the moderator will ask questions to the different speakers. So I would like now to introduce the next speaker, Claire Morel, who is leading the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action units within the Directorate General for Education and Culture in the European Commission. Previously, she was the head of unit for international cooperation in the same Directorate General. So we are very privileged to have with us today, Claire. So Claire, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Laurent. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my presentation will be in English, but I'll start with a few words in Russian since our colleagues, Russian colleagues spoke in English. I'll say a few words in Russian at the beginning. So, дорогие участники семинара, спасибо вам, что присоединились к нам сегодня. Я начну немножко на русском, как я сказала, и потом перейду на английский язык. В своем кратком выступлении я бы хотела подчеркнуть, что существуют две программы Европейского Союза по поддержке мобильности студентов и исследователей. Первая программа, которую, наверное, вы хорошо знаете, это программа Erasmus для студентов и преподавателей. И вторая – это программа Marie Skłodowska-Curie для всех исследователей. Это для молодых ученых, например, желающих принять участие в высококлассных международных докторских программах, но и для тех тоже, кто уже обладает докторской степенью и любых других сотрудников, которые задействованы в проведении исследователей. То есть возможности имеются для исследователей любого уровня и на любом этапе их карьеры. Сейчас Россия является самой активной страной, партнером в мире по программе Erasmus, и мы бы хотели, почему бы нет, чтобы то же самое произошло с программой Marie Skłodowska-Curie. Сейчас я перехожу на английский с тем, чтобы представить вам еще несколько аргументов в пользу участия в этом программе. So the rest of my presentation will now be in English. I'll say a few words about the Erasmus program and the link between Erasmus and Horizon Europe, and in particular the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. For Erasmus, I will not say much because we have a very active national Erasmus Plus office in Russia who is organizing a lot of information events and has a very good website, and you can always contact them to have more details on the program. But the most Erasmus Plus has been open to Russia for now almost 7 years, and the most interesting actions of Erasmus Plus open to Russia are first what we call the credit mobility action. So that's the traditional Erasmus mobility, which has existed for more than 30 years in Europe, and it allows students to do part of their studies in Europe, but it's also open for, let's say, students from the EU to go to Russia, and I'll give you some figures. It's short-term mobility between 3 and 12 months, and it has been extremely popular amongst Russian students, but also amongst staff, because it's a scheme which is open to all levels of higher education, to academic staff and administrative staff in universities as well. The second interesting action open to Russian institutions is the capacity building action, where also a lot of universities are taking part, and it allows universities, for example, to modernize their curricula, to develop new diplomas, to launch staff development programs, to introduce the credit system, quality assurance measure. It's extremely vast. And the third interesting action under Erasmus Plus for Russia, where Russia has been also very active, are the Jean Monnet activities. And those are, this is an action for EU studies, for research, for doing research or training and teaching on EU studies. So if you are already involved in Erasmus Plus, this is a good, let's say, stepping stone, if I can say, to go to the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action. As Laurent mentioned in his introduction, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action is part of the EU Horizon 2020 program, which is the program for research and innovation. It's part of what we call Pillar 1. So that's the excellence pillar. And that's one of the characteristics of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action, is that all its selection is based on excellence. Next slide. Yeah. So just to give you a few figures regarding the participation so far of Russia in Erasmus Plus, as I said, this participation is extremely active. You see that since the program was launched in 2015, we've had the mobility of students and staff in both directions. So that's the first graph. So you see how many students and staff were mobile to Russia and the other way around. So that's for short-term mobility. And then we have, in addition to what we call credit mobility, we also have Erasmus Mundus joint master degrees, which allow Russian students to do a full degree in the EU and to be mobile in at least 2 European countries and obtain in the end a double or a joint degree awarded by a consortium of universities from the EU, but also from other countries. And in fact, in the past years, we've had as well Russian universities involved in this international consortia and being able to award at least double degrees, because I don't think it's possible still. The legislation, I think, does not allow joint degrees, but I'm not entirely sure on that point. So you see here the number of students who received scholarship year after year. So those are small numbers because it's an excellence action. So the number of students selected is lower, but it's interesting to note that universities can also take part in this action. Then the capacity building action that I mentioned as well. Here as well, you have the let's say the evolution of Russian participation from Russia, and here as well you see that a lot of universities, but it's open not only to universities, by the way, it's open also to enterprises, to public administration, to any institution from civil society, from government interested in joining those projects. Ministry of Education, of course, is highly welcome to join those projects. And finally, as I mentioned, a small activity, Jean Monnet, to study EU studies or to do research in EU studies. Next slide. So now I will move to MSCA. MSCA stands for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action. It's a program that has existed for more than 25 years. It's less well known probably than Erasmus, but it's, if I may say, a sort of natural continuation of Erasmus, because this addresses the needs of students interested in doing a doctoral program or also in post-doctoral researchers. So it's a program that focuses very much on the career development, training of researchers by offering funding to develop excellent international doctoral programs, collaborative research, and it offers as well a fellowship scheme for post-doctoral researchers. And my colleague Thierry will, after my presentation, introduce to you an ongoing call that we have for individual fellowships for post-doctoral researchers. The program is open to researchers from all over the world, mobility of researchers from all over the world. There is no limitation. And in fact, it's the most international program under Horizon 2020, and we wish it to continue in the future. It stimulates, as I say, international cooperation, interdisciplinary cooperation, and we put a particular focus on intersectoral cooperation. So cooperation between universities, scientific or research centers, but also enterprises, civil society, and any type of institution interested in joining those projects. It offers extremely attractive working and employment conditions. So it offers, for example, working contract and contribution. The researchers which are hired by the projects have to contribute to the social security and get all the related benefits. It's open to researchers at any stage of their career. It's a bottom-up program, so it means that it covers all possible domains of research. We do not impose any particular discipline. The selection is only made on the basis of excellence, and as I said, we really promote very much cooperation with the non-academic sector. Next one. Yes, so those are the different actions. I will not go into detail because I don't have time today. I just want to tell you that there are 4 main actions. The first one is called the ITN, Innovative Training Networks. Those are doctoral networks. So the consortia which apply for these doctoral networks receive funding for their functioning, but also to award fellowships to attract the best doctoral candidates from all over the world. And this is open as well to doctoral candidates from all over the world, but institutions can participate in this as well. So it's not an action that is only targeting individual researchers. It targets as well universities, research centers from all over the world. Then we have the individual fellowships for postdoctoral candidates, and my colleague Thierry will present you the ongoing call. The third action is the RISE, so it's a research and innovation staff exchange. This is a staff exchange action for short-term exchanges, short-term placements, so it's between 1 and 12 months. It's for any researchers at any stage of their career. It can be doctoral candidates, it can be postdoc, it can be administrative staff, it can be technical staff. And this is, I think, the action where we have the most participation from Russia. And the next one is co-fund. It's a co-funded action for where the EU puts money, money to existing doctoral programs and existing fellowship programs, and co-fund it if it corresponds, of course, to the criteria of the MSCA program. Next one. So here you see the participation of Russia in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action since 2014. You see that the participation is very modest, and I think this is what as well Laurent mentioned in his introduction. We would like really to promote more participation by organizing these kinds of seminars, and also by maybe finding together with the national Russian authorities ways to co-fund some of the actions. So you see that we have both institutions, so organizations involved in the program, and we also have researchers. So far, 424 researchers. I think that we have ongoing calls for the time being, so I'm sure that this number will be increased. And we have mainly Russian researchers coming to the EU, but we also have a number of EU researchers going to Russian organizations, and we would like this trend to increase in the future. You see as well below the top Russian participating organizations. So the first one is ITMO University, followed by Novosibirsk State University, Lomonosov, St. Petersburg State Universities, and Peter the Great Polytechnic University. Next one. We are currently preparing the next phase of the MSCA, as we are preparing the next phase of all EU programs. And for MSCA, it will happen in the framework of Horizon Europe, the future EU program for research and innovation. Our stakeholders have told us that the program is a very good one, so we're not changing a lot. We are just adjusting it a little bit. The different actions that I presented to you will remain in the future, but they will have a different name to make them easier to understand, especially for newcomers. So we will, as of next year, continue to fund doctoral networks, postdoctoral fellowships, staff exchange, co-fund, and we also have an action for outreach, which will be called MSc and Citizens, and which mainly consists of the European Researchers' Night, which is an outreach event that is organized every year in September. So with the new program, we want to continue with simpler rules, so there will be less sub-actions, harmonized conditions. Since the program is very competitive, because there is a lot of interest in it, and unfortunately the budget does not allow to fund as many proposals as we will wish, we will need to introduce some maybe tougher conditions to participate in the future. This is why it's important that you apply this year for the individual fellowships. We want also to ensure that the program has an impact not only on the researcher's career, but also on the institution. Yes? Sorry, I'm almost at the end. I'm not sure if it was a sign that I should stop. But anyway, and the last thing I wanted to say is that we will put a specific focus on exposure beyond academia. So cooperation between academia and the world of work. So that's all, I think, what I wanted to tell you today. I'd like to thank you very much. Огромное спасибо за внимание. And I will now pass the word to my colleague Thierry Devar, who will tell you about the individual fellowships.
Spasiba большое, Claire. Very impressed by your Russian. And thank you also very much for mentioning Erasmus Plus, because I know we have participants also from the national office here in Moscow. I think the next speaker is Thierry, who works with Claire and mostly on the international program. So Thierry, will you also speak in Russian?
Not really for the moment. I try to find the presentation. All right. Okay, so we can go directly, through the next slide. Yeah, just so as Claire said, well, the individual fellowships action is one of the four main action of of the program, and the second in terms of budget, so corresponding to approximately 30% of the budget behind the IT and the innovative training networks. So roughly, to give an idea, the MSCA program is about 1 billion euro a year, and the IF so represents 30% of this budget. Next slide. So here I try to put the key principles, the key words of the actions, which is focused on strengthening the career development of individual researchers, so the career prospects through research. I mean, individual fellowships are primarily research projects. Through mobility, which is a key element, transnational mobility is compulsory for individual fellowships, but also international and intersectoral ones that we encourage through some incentives in the program, and also of course on advanced training here for develop research skills, but not only, to develop also transferable skills to increase the employability of the researchers. Typically, those skills, those training are, for instance, on entrepreneurship, on IPR, can be on open science, on communication. So these are the classical trainings that we have. There's also the obligation to develop a career development plan during the implementation of the projects, highlighting the training and the career needs of the individual researchers, including this training on transferable skill, on teaching, on publications, etc. So this is for experienced researchers, those having already a PhD or more than 4 years full-time equivalent research experience of any nationality. So this is very important. It's open to researchers, from any nationalities. But those researchers apply together with an institution, which is the beneficiary, that must be located in an EU member state or associated country. And of course, the grant agreement is signed with the beneficiary, so with the institution, not with the individual researcher. It's fully bottom-up, so it covers any scientific field. And as it was mentioned, also it's excellence-driven. There's 3 criteria for the evaluation of the project, and excellence, which means the overall quality of the project, the novelty aspect, is the criteria having the most importance. It's with a weight of 50%. Besides the transnational mobility, a secondment is also possible to another organization, should it be academic or non-academic. So by non-academic, well, we mean industry, business, government, but any kind of civil society organizations, museum, hospitals. But this secondment has to be within Europe and up to 6 months. Next slide. So participation is open to any country worldwide. So member states, we have 27 EU member states for now, plus the program is fully open to the UK for these calls in Horizon 2020, and we have 16 associated countries which can participate on the same ground as EU member states stakeholders. And then we have third countries, and Russia would qualify for the third countries categories. Next slide. So basically, there are 2 main categories of individual fellowships. European fellowships, so for fellows wishing to come to Europe or moving from one country to another within Europe. Here again, when we mention Europe, we mean European EU member states and associated countries. So the duration can vary from 12 to 36 months. And the second big category is called global fellowships. This time for fellows established in Europe, so either nationals from EU member states or associated countries, or long-term residents in Europe who wish to go outside Europe. And here there is a written phase which is mandatory for returning to Europe of 12 months. And the total duration here is between 24 and 36 months. Next slide. In terms of budget for this call, which is currently open, so the total budget is more than 300 million euros, 328. Most of the money goes for European fellowships, where you see with 273 million through 4 subcategories that I will rapidly describe, and 50 million goes to the global fellowships. Next slide. About the timing of this call. So the call has already opened. It opened on the 8th of April this year. It will close, the deadline will be on the 9th of September. The evaluation of proposal will be between October and December. We will start preparing the grants in early February next year. And for starting date, the earliest starting date could be on 1st March next year, up to 1st September 2020. Next one. So just a short description of the different subcategories. So the main European fellowship category is a standard one. Here, proposals are allocated in, depending of course on the topic, in 8 different scientific panels that you have here. It's chemistry, it's social science and humanities, economic science, information science and engineering, environment and geosciences, life science, mathematics and physics. And the budget of those different panels, of course, is proportional to the number of eligible proposals which are allocated. So with the idea, of course, to guarantee the same success rates, you know, for proposals across the different disciplines. Here we have a mobility rule, which we call the standard mobility rule for MSCA, which means that the researchers must not have resided or worked more than 1 year in the past 3 years, you know, in the country of the beneficiary. And the duration of this standard fellowship is between 12 and 24 months. Next one. The next one is a career restart panel. So this is to cope with researchers who had a career break for whatever reason. Should it be for personal reasons like parental leave, or for professional reason to have another professional experience. The condition is that the researchers should not have been active in research for minimum 12 consecutive months within the past 18 months. And the mobility rule here is a bit relaxed, with the conditions that the researchers should not have resided for the past 3 years in the past 5 years in the country of the beneficiary. And here, also the main difference with the standard one is that the proposals are evaluated through one multidisciplinary panel. Next one. Next one is another subcategory called reintegration panel. So this is mainly for researchers located outside the EU who want to pursue their research career in the EU. Again, it's not only European researchers that are targeted here. It can be long-term residents. You see that if researchers have spent at least 5 years in Europe before leaving, they would be eligible. And here again, we use, the relaxed mobility rule of the 3 years. And this is also evaluated through one multidisciplinary panel. Next one. Next one is also specific. It's for, it's called the Society and Enterprise Panel, and this is for researchers wishing to have a mobility in a non-academic organizations, so in non-academic sector. It's also evaluated through a multidisciplinary panel, and it also applies the relaxed mobility rule. Next. Finally, the other big category, as I said, is global fellowships, which which use also the different 8 scientific panels, and this is for researchers from European researchers or established in Europe wishing to have an experience outside Europe. And here we use, the standard mobility rule of 12 months for an outgoing phase outside the EU of up to 24 months, and the mandatory return phase of 12 months to the EU. Next. For the financial aspects of the actions are based on unit cost, one unit representing 1 person month. So the calculation of the budget of the actions are quite straightforward. We have per month, on one side, researcher unit cost, which represents a living allowance, which is nearly of €5,000 a month, plus a mobility allowance, of 600 euro and the family allowance of 500 if the researcher is, of course, entitled to eligible for it. And we have institutional cost, which goes to the hosting institution, covering the research, training, and networking, so 800 euro per month, and the management and indirect cost, 650 euros. So basically, to get the budget of an individual fellowship, you multiply the duration by the different unit costs corresponding, to the particular researchers. Just one word to say that the living allowance is adjusted with a country correction coefficient to cope with the actual living cost, of the country where the researchers is hosted. Next one. One word about, what it represents, especially in terms of evaluation. So with individual fellowships, we're breaking records because this is, by far the priority of the framework program receiving most proposals. We're receiving nearly now 10,000 proposals per call, and we can only fund about 1,500 of them, so it's a success rate of about 15%. It's a huge process. We have to mobilize 4,500 experts for the evaluation. You saw that we deal with 8 scientific panels. We try to be efficient, so to have short proposals, max 10 pages. On the evaluation criteria, we have only 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. You see that the most important assessing, for assessing the quality of the research, the potential of the researcher is the most important. It has a weight of 50%. 30% on the impact, which is, assessing how the action will impact the career prospects for the researchers. And 20% on the implementation, which is more the management, including, for instance, the risk management, the quality of the work plan, etc. Next one. So to conclude, well, especially as the call is already open, so there is no time to lose if you are interested, is to go to our portal on funding and tender opportunities, which is very straightforward to find on the web. You have the address here, and where you will find all key documents related to this call. So this call is MSCA IF 2020, so IF for individual fellowships. You will have, of course, the text of the call, all the conditions, the procedure for applications, and the most important document is highlighted in the next slide, please. Yes, which is called the guide for applicants. So here you will find this guide on the call page in the portal. And this will describe, all the forms you have to fill, all the procedure, all the evaluations. That's a fact, also with a lot of reference for support. So you will find there all technical support information for this call. And well, I think this, with the next slide, conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Loren, please switch on microphone. Loren, microphone.
Thank you, co-chair. So thank you very much, Thierry. That was very clear. We'll put all the presentations after the webinar online for those who want to see again some of the slides and activate some of the links. The next speaker is also from the EU side. This is Katalin Alfoldi. She's task leader at the COST Association with responsibility for global networking. She worked before in DG Research and Innovation, the Commission at the Hungarian representation in Brussels. So Katalin, the floor is you. yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Good afternoon to all of the participants, and thank you for inviting us as COS to be present here. I will do in my first time of live to share screen, so I hope it will go smoothly, and you will be able to see my screen as it should be seen. I got a very short, I think I got a very moment in this discussion when you already had a long description and explanation of how to apply for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And you have to now digest with all the specificities and the uniqueness of that program. So, and I'm bringing you something else, which is a different program. The COST program, it stands for Cooperation, European Cooperation in Science and Technology. And basically, this is a program that promotes the networking of researchers. The networking features is that the networking should be based on research needs. The COST is an intergovernmental organization with 39 countries already on board and closely working together with its near neighboring countries, which are, in one of those countries is Russia, whose researchers are welcome and encouraged to participate in the COST projects, which are called COST actions. How to participate in those projects, how to engage with COST? There are three different type of engagement that you could imagine for yourself. I would start with the second point because that was that would rhyme more to the way how the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions were explained, and that is to become a secondary proposer of a COST action. Secondary proposer would mean that there is a minimum number of COST full member countries representatives that need to be engaged in a proposal, and there they can invite or they can be joined by a secondary proposal from Russia or any other countries of the world, and they can submit a proposal to our open call. Another opportunity, which is maybe less similar to this logic of thinking, but much more easier, is just to become a participant of a running COST action. COST actions are advertised on the COST website. You will have the website address at the end of the presentation. And these COST actions, currently there are 290 COST actions running. They are all able and ready to welcome new participants via a similar application procedure where the interested person or a researcher need to send an application email to the COST action chair. And then the application will be managed via our online system that takes approximately 2-3 weeks to associate to any COST action. This is an easy way and a low barrier access to the COST actions where you don't have to go through any kind of proposal preparation difficulty. Of course, you can be curious and please be curious about our open call, because you can become also an external evaluator by posting your interest via our website, because the COST actions evaluation is done in a remote way. So you can join and become an evaluator from anywhere in the world. Some words about participation from Russia already in the COST actions or COST activities. You can see on this slide that from the beginning of the Horizon 2020 program, so as from 2014, there is a more or less stable participation from Russia, which is about 20% of the running projects run with the Russian participants. Of course, 20% is on 20%. It means that there is about 80% of the actions without the Russian participants, and this 80% can be filled up. And you can join these actions based on, of course, your expertise and interest. On the number of individual participants in the project, it means about 100 individuals per year in the different running actions, which can also be a figure to be boosted. The current year, we took a snapshot of participation at the end of April. We are at the moment with 84 cost actions, having 60 institutions from 60 different institutions from Russia to have at least one participant in these actions. So you can also see that in one cost action, it is possible to have more participants from the same country or from the same institutions. And last but not least, I would like to highlight some of the benefits that you could receive or you could attain as by participating in a cost action. You could boost your career. You could, of course, extend your network. And there is also a possibility that via the network established and with the professional relationships gained via the cost action, you can have higher chances to postulate applications into other funding schemes, such as the Horizon 2020 program. And with that, I thank you for your attention. And on this slide, you can see all our contact details, and would be happy to see you in the cost actions in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katalin. Very interesting presentation. Dear participant, all this presentation will be available for shared. If you want, please ask our organizers, and we can send you this presentation directly or upload from the site. Dear participant, now we are go to the next point of our agenda and to start the section with some presentation of testimonials. And first of them, the chair of Russian chapter, Maria Skłodowska-Curie Association, Boris Voronin, who is a scientist from Tomsk. Boris, please take it.
Yes. Hello, glad to see you. Thank you for invitation. Some fellow Russian chapter, Marie Curie Alumni Association, helped me to preparation this presentation. It's Olga Бойцова, Nikolai Babylov, Sergey, and Yulia. Next slide. Sorry, I don't understand. I try. How can I manage next slide? Sorry.
By switch to the presentation and then use like a simple presentation model.
Just a moment. Still one time. And now, yes, and it's work. Thank you for help. First, I must say thank you for Marie Curie program for support, and very thank for special external audit. It's very helpful instrument, not only Russia but in Europe too. And my presentation will be some three parts. Somewhat about Marie Curie Alumni Association. After finish your proposal, Europe not forget about you. It's very nice. Indicate some difficulty of the year's Russian science cooperation and possible solution of those difficulties. And Marie Curie Alumni Association, it's not commercial organization, has a website, mission, strategy, goals, and you possibly see on site of MCA Association. And it's not commercial, self-administration association. The board, the election every 2 years. Now chair of board, you can see on the slide. And if say some words about countries. for last year, more than 100,000 grants was distributed by European Commission, and in alumni more than 15,000. Donor country is Italy. People who go from Italy go to United Kingdom, accepted United Kingdom. And if say some words, not Europe, a country, and Marie Curie Association, it's 90, more than 90% Russian members don't come back to Russia. It really says that reintegration not work very well. For example, it's a statistic alumni association, only 14 people indicate current region like Russia, but nationally was almost 200 people. And there are 33 chapter is a geographic or nationally chapter. They're big like Germany, and small Middle East chapter only 8 members. And every year, almost every year, the General Assembly, Alumni Association, and different country of Europe. Last was in Vienna. In this year, no. It's you can see members of Russian chapter in Vienna on General Assembly, and Russian chapter is 35 members, and more actively members I indicate by stars. And about any member, possible to say a lot words, grants, paper, Hirsch, and other. It's I demonstrate only 2. Sergei Luchkin now working in Skłodowska, and Yulia Shakalisova now living in Netherlands, and she is expert to writing created proposal, and some would say about her later. And Russian chapter and have a small budget and from Europe, and you can see we have around table almost every year, meeting, consulting, and other transfer science ideas, practice of Russia chapter in 1, 2, 3, 5 year, you can see. And time to time, members of Russian chapter invited like experts. You can see 1 year ago was a conference in Riep and with Minister of Education and Science. And difficult. Why cooperation between Europe and Russia is not so perfect? I think it's first information. Because, for example, from official channel, I know one time not see about Marie Curie for last 20 years, and only by colleagues, by internet, maybe it's a problem. It's possible in US also there are problem with information about Russian program for integration. Infrastructure of Russian science and education is very good for excellent integration. Support, it's different things, and technical language, visa, tax, personal, and other. And development. Of course, if the politics index to improve our relations, needed to prepare new instrument, and hope our ministry and Europe Commission will be prepared on change old instrument, grants program, to improve our cooperation. Some suggestion about science infrastructure. Of course, very important it's language. As English, Spanish, French, or German language for Russian, also Russian language for foreign student or foreign postdoc and postgraduate student. Also, there are problems with law, with visa support, it's other. Possible, maybe will be helpful, possible open probability that foreign scientists or student postgraduate can take the participation in the FFE, RNF, and other Russian-only science program. And maybe needed involve not university and institute first category to combine with more weak lab and more weak institute to include it in the cooperation. And also Yulia Sokolysova write some text. I think its text will be very interesting to experts and from Russia and Europe. And my idea that needed special instrument, grants, program to improve cooperation. And there are some sentence, science also dependent on politics. It's I very like this sentence. And I'm all. Thank you for attention. And you can read, unfortunately, on Russian a paper about some ideas about international cooperation and other. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris, for presentation of alumni Russian chapter. We are in ministry very active use Russian alumni like an expert for our activities, and we taking into account your suggestions, some of them already under development. So the next presenter in testimonial section, Maria Kotia. And also I would say for our participants that now we open the chat for the questions. Please, all your questions concerning the all your questions concerning the presentation and speakers, please write in the chat, and our moderator will select most interesting, and then during the question and answer section we can to answer some of them. Thank you very much. Maria, please.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. I am Maria Kotlyar, who is Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellow at Cork Institute of Technology in Ireland. To begin with, my career in science started in 2001 when I graduated in physics from Samara University in Russia. For my postgraduate studies, I went to Scotland, where in very international community, I obtained my doctoral degree in 2004 in the field of photonic crystals, which are basically very small structures fabricated in semiconductors and are used extensively in as optical elements. When these elements are used in optical telecommunications, they can make internet faster, cheaper, and its components much smaller. So after my degree, I had few postdoctoral positions at the same University of St. Andrews in Scotland, working in a field of nanophotonics. Then I paused my career and took some time off to raise my children. In 2016, I applied for Marie Curie Fellowship at Career Restart Panel. This is one of the actions, and Claire mentioned them. It's for people who had some break from their career at least 12 months or more. And I was successful, and in spring of 2018, I started my Marie Skłodowska Fellowship in the group of Advanced Photonics at Cork Institute of Technology in Ireland. You can see all the captions and names on my slide. I hope you can see it. In my new research was on quantum photonics this time, and my task was to develop sources which would produce quantum sources of light. And later on, these sources could be integrated in internet and optical telecommunications, improving its security, which is a very important task in a modern world where vast amounts of information is getting stored and transmitted, and they have to be stored and transmitted secure. This is where my project plays some part. But for this project to take part, I needed access to quite expensive, large and complex equipment of working with semiconductors. And mobility of Marie Curie allowed me to, by moving to Ireland, to have access to such equipment at my host Kappa. And also we have a close collaboration with another Irish institute, Tyndall, where I carry out part of my work. Both of these institutes has a vast amount of knowledge in optical telecommunications and in quantum optics. Because this is my fellowship is training fellowship, so photonic crystals was my expertise, which I brought to the group, while quantum photonics was something new, and I'm fortunate enough to work in the field of experts which could teach me in it. So, as both of these institutes are very active in European collaborations, I was able to be involved in another Marie Curie action, which is Claire also mentioned. It's like training, is it innovation training network. So in this action, and this project is called Optophy, and this is training network for PhD students. And this is a very novel one because a PhD student would receive a double doctorate from 2 European institutes. My host Kappa is hosting this project, but there are partners in Italy, France, and in Austria. And at the moment, I just would like to mention that Kappa is still advertising 4 PhD positions in this project, and Russian students and students from any other countries are very welcome to apply for it if they would like to. So also during my fellowship, I had a collaboration with a group in Russia, and I helped this group to apply for some funding from one of Horizon 20 project Ascent, which give access to scientists from different countries to equipment, which otherwise they would not be able to have access to in their countries. And because this group had access, which was given to them at Tyndall, I was able to do some work for them. Also, I would like to mention that during my Marie Curie Fellowship, I was able to work part-time, which is quite important for me to keep in my work-life balance in appropriate condition. My fellowship is for 2 years full-time, so at the moment I'm in the middle of it. And here in Tyndall and in Kappa at Cork Institute of Technology, I found myself in an excellent environment of a mixture of international scientists, local industry, and involvement with academia, which is giving me in the future option to follow any of these paths, either research, academia, or industry. If I'm to give advice to some Russian researchers, something short for how to apply for Marie Curie Fellowship, I think, in my opinion, one of the important things would be to find a host which is as excited as you are in the project which you are going to pursue. The host which obviously have facilities, equipment necessary for your project, who has expertise in writing this type of proposals and would be able to help you through submissions. Also looking for different partners in different countries, not just in the country of a host you're looking for. but in a third countries where you can go maybe for possible secondments, connections with industry, and at the end, try to vision how you can disseminate your results among more general public, like school children and school students. And good luck with it, and thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Maria, for a very lively testimonial, explaining where you're coming from, where you are aiming at, and giving very concrete recommendation to future applicants. You're a good example of what we call the individual career restart fellowship that was introduced by Thierry, one of the category of the individual fellowships. It was also good that you reminded everybody that there are a number of PhD grants which are available as part of the innovative training networks, which have been selected recently, who are now recruiting PhD students, and Russian scientists can apply to become a PhD student supported under one of those ITN, Marie Skłodowska-Curie action. And our third and last testimonial from Marie Skłodowska-Curie action is going to be given by Nikolai Bobulov. We already saw pictures of him a couple of times because he's one of the co-founder of the alumni chapter in Russia. He is a former Marie Skłodowska-Curie fellow, and he did his fellowship in the University of Birmingham, and is currently back in St. Petersburg State University, where he is the head of the master's program for environment management. So Nikolai, we are ready to hear your story. Thank you.
Hello, many thanks, Laurent, for your kind introduction. And I would like to mention Boris's talk, which he just delivered. And indeed, I think that the life after the fellowship, to me, it's maybe even more exciting part. And I would like to congratulate also European Commission on having such an ample alumni program. Of course, I was looking for many fellowships, and I had a few before, but then Marie Skłodowska-Curie action is a very competitive one, and you need to get a very high score to that application would pass, and you need to have a very qualified host to do this. In my case, it was the University of Birmingham, and famous scientist, Professor Chris Rogers, who endorsed my application, and indeed we wrote it together. I think that it is very important for a successful application that you write it together with your host. And this fellowships, it's actually opens up a lot of opportunities. Not it's one of the highest paid fellowships. But it also has an ample research budget, which principal investigator formally is in charge of, but in reality, a fellow is usually free to structure use of their own budget. And here comes ample opportunities for networking. It's actually fellows' personal decision how they would like to market themselves, what would they like to do with the research budget. And my research is focused on sustainable urbanization, so I use this budget to be engaged in professional networks, events with international organizations. I work a lot with United Nations, so during these 2 years, I truly invested into my career, well, European money actually, and I think eventually it has brought ample results. Now I'm fully engaged, I should say, with several UN agencies as a consultant in my field. And I'm also an associated editor of a leading scientific journal in the field. And I think I'm having an exciting work at St. Petersburg State University Institute of Earth Sciences. And very exciting that I now have 3 research projects which I am leading, and one of them is ERANET and associated with the Russian Basic Research Foundation, so I can hire young researchers myself. And I think that Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship really provided this springboard for a lot of these activities. As I mentioned, it's not only science, but it's also project management, budget management. You can hire research assistants. You can do many things, and this all will help in a future life, in a successful professional and academic career. And yeah, finally, I would go back to Marie Curie Alumni Association, and we have a small group, Russian. I mean, compared to Italians, there are hundreds of them. Yeah, we are just dozens of people, but we are fully engaged with science stakeholders in Russia, mainly government, and we have ample networks, and we are consulting internationally and helping to propel our vision for sustainable international career. And in science, it's only international career which is possible to be successful, of course. With that, I thank you very much for your attention, and I encourage everybody to apply. It's competitive, but it is very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. I'm very glad to see you. The next, our speakers, I would like to present you Professor Dmitry Ivanov, who is a great specialist in Europe in the field of material science. Dmitry expanded his activities, his scientific career in Europe, and then back to Russian Federation as mega grant holders, working here in Moscow State University, and now leader of laboratory in Moscow University, and I think he can present himself. Dmitry, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to see you here. So I will deliver a very short talk describing my, let's say, experience with the Megagrant project and giving you a concrete example of how such project can be realized. So let me share my screen. So I will be talking about megagrants, and the title of my talk is actually Megagrant as an excellent opportunity for a middle career stage researcher, who I am actually, and I will try to convince you. And in the case I don't have enough time, I'll be happy to answer any questions in the message line. So I work as a director of research at the French CNRS, which is le Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, which is the biggest scientific organization in the world, and who has actually the slogan, which sounds like dépasser les frontières. It means cross the borders. And this is exactly what we did in the frame of our Megagrant project, which was realized at the Lomonosov Moscow State University at the Faculty of Fundamental Physical Chemical Engineering. So since I'm working in CNRS, I know the main instruments of international cooperation, which are developed by CNRS. And that can be listed here. So you can see from right to left different formats of international cooperations that are actually used by CNRS researchers. And on the right side, you start with just travel grants, small grants involving building of virtual laboratories or virtual networks. And as you go more and more to the left side, you see that these formats involve more and more of laboratory construction and investment into the laboratory infrastructure. And of course, these are the instruments of the French CNRS. And if I would position a mega grant, which, as it was mentioned before by Mr. Anikeev and Mr. Sermon, was introduced by the Russian government in 2010 to boost science in Russia, I would position it more on the left side, because as you will see, it allows you to build a new laboratory with elements of heavy scientific infrastructure. And on top right, I show you an image from a CNRS journal from 2016, showing you probably a symbolic image of how foreign scientists would imagine working in Russia, in Russian climate. And well, this is not always true, and it depends, of course, on the things we are doing. So this is just an example and my personal experience. I started it in 2011, and we started building a new experimental laboratory at the Lomonosov Moscow State University. I am an experimental physicist, and we study functional materials. And within the frame of the project, we were able to build from scratch a new laboratory and equip it with several very powerful pieces of equipment, which made our research effective and very interesting. So here I give you just an example of a piece of equipment which we were able to design and build together with the French engineers. And it is an X-ray scattering machine, allowing us to analyze the structure of complex, hierarchically structured functional materials. And our team, which I was building in Russia, worked very closely with our French team. And we perform common experiments, for example, using big instruments such as European Synchrotron Radiation Facility in Grenoble, France. But our laboratory instrument is actually a small synchrotron where we can do most of the experiments designed to unveil the structure of the materials we synthesize. So this is just one of the examples. We design new functional materials, for example, for ion conducting membranes. And this is the approach bottom up, where we're building these materials from small molecules that would organize into some kind of supramolecular structure. And then we arrest this structure by photopolymerization and use it for building the devices. So I would say that our scientific cooperation with Russian partners was relatively effective. Since the beginning of the mega grant, we published 94 papers in peer-reviewed journals, including high impact factor journals such as Advanced Materials, Advanced Energy Materials, Chemical Communication, and some others. And we established close cooperation with the key academic partners in Russia, such as different faculties of the Lomonosov Moscow State University, the Institute of Physics and Technology, where actually I graduated from, with Novosibirsk Technical University, with Kurchatov Institute, and with the Institute of Problems of Chemical Physics in Chernogolovka. So our mega grant project was finished in 2015, but we think that the scientific cooperation between the laboratory that we founded and international partners can continue. and we search for new formats of this scientific cooperation. And one of the examples can be given here. It's collaboration in the frame of so-called interdisciplinary institutes, which is a new format of the French scientific program. It is a multinational scientific programs that involve several European universities as well as industrial partners. We have 9 transnational chemical companies, including BASF, Bayer, Total, and Urgo. And we have several innovation organizations, such as, for example, the Carnot Institutes, which is also an interesting, a relatively new format of cooperation between academic and industrial science in France. And our project is called Hierarchical Functional Materials, and it involves Lomonosov Moscow State University as a participant. And we have an accent on academic research and training of young scientists. We have hundreds of PhD students and master students and students of other levels involved in the program. And I think as for the mega grants, the training and education of young scientists is one of our objectives, because as I mentioned in the title line, for researchers in their middle stage career, it is very important to share the scientific expertise and to educate young scientists and to watch them growing up and becoming fully independent and motivated researchers. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dmitry. Your presentation is a very good example about your project, your history. To show us that it's possible to use support by the Russian mega grant project for develop collaboration between the Europe and Russian Federation and achieve brilliant results, brilliant scientific results, and young science motivation. It's very important.
Thank you very much.
Dear participant, let me introduce next speakers. This director of the Center International Projects, Institute of Statistical Studies and Economic Knowledge, Moscow High School of Economy, Anna Pikalova. She presents support provided by Russian MCSA national contact points. Anna, please take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes. The Russian network of national contact points for promoting research and technology cooperation between Russia and European Union under Horizon 2020 program has been established by the Ministry of Science and Higher Education of the Russian Federation. National Contact Point Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions is hosted by Institute for Statistical Studies and Economics of Knowledge, National Research University, High School of Economics. NCP provides information and consulting support for Russian researchers who plan to participate in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions program. We provide information through our website. You see now a screenshot of pages in Russian and in English of our website. In Russian, we publish news and information on open calls for proposals for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, as well as other programs of European Union and member states of European Union. You can find also detailed information on Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions and other European programs at our website in Russian language. English pages present information on Russian programs promoting international mobility of researchers. And you can see here example of the page about the Mega Grant program. Now you can see this page which presents information about open call for individual fellowships of Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions. Also, we make presentations of Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions in Russia. Lately, last year, we made presentations in March at National University of Science and Technology, Missis, at the workshop organized by NCP Infrastructures. And another presentation was in October in Moscow Pedagogical State University at the information session organized by Erasmus Plus office in Russia. Here are some slides which we present. On these slides, we present key information for participation of Russia in Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions, particularly for individual fellowships, mobility rules, size of the grant, where find guide for applicants to prepare proposal, information about Euraccess portal, where open vacancies in innovative training networks and co-fund projects are published, and Russian researchers can apply for these vacancies. You can find these slides on Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions in Russian on our website, and you can see link here. And I would like also to draw your attention to the materials provided by the network of national contact points from different countries. Information published on the website of this network is very useful. You can find handbooks with tips to write part B2 of proposal, and blog of frequently asked questions collected by national contact points from their practice. And the last slide, you can see my contact details, and you can address me questions connected with participation in Maria Skłodowska-Curie Actions Program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Also, let me add some information for our participants. The whole presentation of today's seminar will be uploaded to the site of our MSCA National Contact Point, and you can upload from this site anytime. Thank you very much one more. Anna, please confirm this information. Is it possible? No, I think, yes?
Yes, of course it is possible.
Yeah.
Yes, we will do this.
Thank you very much. Then I think after some days, all presentation will be available on the site. Dear participant, now we have the rest of the time for our question and answers section. All your questions we see on our group chat in Zoom, and also additional chat in YouTube channel. The moderator of this session will be Elena Nasibulina, leading expert of the Institute of Statistical Studies and Economic Knowledge, National School of Economy. And Elena, please take the floor for our questions. I think all our participants today and our panel speakers will be ready for answered selected questions.
Yes, good afternoon, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank our participants, our speakers, for such a detailed and comprehensive overview of EU and Russian opportunities for supporting researchers, mobility and training. The importance of today's event is demonstrated that we have a large number of participants, both on Zoom and following us on YouTube. We've received a number of questions, so I've decided to pick up some of them most common ones and most interesting ones, which are presented on this slide, so which my colleagues have helped me to download. First, there are firstly two general questions which our participants have raised, and these questions I would like to address to our co-chairs, Mr. Anikeev and Mr. Bochereau, and possibly also to Alexei Semyon and Claire Morel. So the first question is how all international programs, both European and Russian, will be affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. How will they be adjusted to the current distance remote attendance format, and how basically how will the current situation and restrictions on the mobility be affected? How will it affect the programs? For instance, will it imply budget cuts since travel is largely restricted, or have some other consequences? Could you please briefly comment on this?
Let me start the answer. Then I think my colleague shared my answer and help me the next. Concerning the first questions, I would from Russian side, from side of the ministry, I would talk that we understand current situation. Really, in my head, we are very hope that in the autumn, at the end of this year, the situation with coronavirus will be stabilized, and our scientists can start face-to-face meeting, face-to-face collaboration, and can visit to other country. We can invite European scientists for our territory. But still now, in the current situation, in situation of the pandemic and special events against COVID extension, like a quarantine, like a restricted moving, we active use remote connection. We active use remote work. Also, we working with database. We working remotely, including laboratories, including mega facilities abroad and in Russian Federation. And I can talk that all facilities, modern laboratories, it's my personal maybe opinion, but are ready for working online. And I think currently we should use this possibility to work in online with laboratory, with database, with physical device, and I think we should continue our activities. Really not so active like before, but it's not so dangerous for program. Concerning the calls, we open calls for mega grant and just collect application. The deadline of application of this call in August of this year. Alexei already presented this. And I think that after selection, the winners, the grant holders, can come to the Russian Federation for the job for the established laboratory, according with the rules of the grant program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, from the EU side, shortly, I understand that we will provide some flexibility and allow many of the research grants to be extended at no cost. But I would like to give the floor to Claire or Thierry for replying more specifically on the mobility grants.
Yes. Yes, well, I'd like to say that a lot of our individual fellows are sometimes in difficult situations, so we had to adapt our rules and to make them much more flexible. So we allow, for example, telework from anywhere in the world. We have adapted as well the mobility rules because a lot of our fellows had to go back to their country. Some of them want to work only part-time. So all the rules have been adapted. We can extend as well the duration of the fellowship. So all of this is already in place. And I think we have found solutions for all our fellows. For the future, we are looking anyway at ways to make the Marie Skłodowska-Curie program more green and to, because it's amongst other things, it's a mobility program. So it has, let's say, a strong footprint on the environment in a way. And I think it's the same for the Erasmus Plus program. So we still believe that, let's say, physical mobility, it's essential because it's part of a cultural experience as well. And that it's essential that researchers, students, academic staff meet in real. But we see now that maybe for very short-term mobility, organization of meetings, and all of this, we could develop further this type of online communication. And for, let's say, short distances, where for the time being people are taking the plane without even thinking about it, we are also reviewing the rules. We will probably encourage more other types of, let's say, travel options than plane. So we were anyway working on this before the COVID crisis started because our program has a strong footprint, so we need to address it.
Okay, thank you very much for these comments. And I think the second question has already been answered, right? Yeah.
Maybe I also announce that all presentation will be loaded to the official site of contact point, and also on the site of the organizers of this meeting with the International Agency of International Affairs. Please load this presentation without problem. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for this clarification. Next, I would like to raise a few questions regarding EC-funded cooperation opportunities. And the first question I would like to address probably to Mr. Bochereau and maybe Claire Morel. It's up to you if you would like to comment on that as well. So the question is, what changes are foreseen in the EC strategy regarding international cooperation within EU's new framework program Horizon Europe? For instance, will it have changes regarding associated status of countries or any other major changes? Could you please briefly comment on that?
Yes, briefly. First of all, our program will remain fully open to international cooperation. We often brag that we are the biggest international program in the world. So we will remain open, fully open to participation from anyone in the world. But for countries like Russia, we expect participation to come with funding. So this is why we are discussing on a regular basis. And tomorrow, we will have actually our joint committee meeting between the Ministry of Science and Higher Education and the European Commission, DG Research and Innovation, and we will discuss this particular point. So I would like not to go into a lot of detail at this stage. Maybe we can move to the next question.
Yes, surely. The next question is more specific. Does RISE program require two-way exchange of resources, or can it be one-way? And that one I would like to address to Claire Morel, please.
Well, I think my colleague Thierry Devar will answer that question.
Okay,
Yeah.
and there is another one which is not on this list, but it is if ITN fellowships are open to Russia. So if Thierry, could you cover that one as well?
Okay, just to change, not to always answer the questions, but I will answer the second one on the ITN. The ITN, the doctoral networks, they are open to any researchers in the world. So even if it's a consortium of European universities from the EU, they can publish, of course, and they do publish this position, and any researchers in the world can apply. When I showed you some statistics, maybe it went very quickly, but there it showed that we had a lot of Russian doctoral candidates. So yes, and these positions, as was mentioned, I think, by our colleague from the National Contact Points, are publicized on the Euraccess site. We can send you all these details afterwards. But Thierry, can you answer the question on RISE?
And can a Russian university, Claire, be part of an ITN?
Yes, a Russian university can be part, but they're not funded. Okay, so yeah, unlike for Erasmus Mundus, where they can receive funding, for ITN, it's not the case. But they can send their doctoral candidates, and they can receive as well doctoral candidates from any country, and then those candidates receive funding.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Claire. Thierry, could you please cover the second question on the RISE program?
Yes, hello again. Well, it's quite straightforward as an answer. So the answer is no, it doesn't require to have, two-way exchanges. Only one way is, is acceptable. The only limitation for RISE consortium is to have a minimum of 3 independent organizations, and 2 of them should be in 2 different EU member states or associated countries. So on top of these minimum rules for participation, any third country's participant can join, so including a Russian one. The other limitation is the fact that for exchanges between European or associated countries, only same sector segments, which are not allowed, which means from academia to academia or from non-academic to non-academic. This is only allowed if the exchange is at international level. So basically an exchange between 2 universities, one in Russia, one in Europe, would be possible. But it doesn't have to be reciprocal. It can be only one way. So full flexibility here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The third question is actually a collection of several questions received from a number of Russian researchers. It is about possibility of participating in MCA program for representatives of humanities and social sciences universities. So the participants mentioned that the majority of Russian universities currently involved in MSCA actions are technical universities, and wonder if there is more support envisaged for social sciences and humanities. So Claire or Thierry, could you please comment on that one?
Yes, well, in fact, we do promote, very much the participation of social science, and we'd like to increase, in fact, the participation of social science in MSCA. Today, around 20% of the whole of MSCA is already dedicated to social sciences and humanities. So yes, it's a bottom-up program, which means that it's open to all possible disciplines. It's true that in Russia, and it's not only the case for MSCA, by the way, it's also the case for Erasmus, that it's mainly technical universities, because this is probably easier to cooperate in those fields. because let's say there is a common language, if I may say, when you are dealing with more technical or hard science. But of course, the program is open to humanities and social sciences, and will continue to be.
Yeah, thank you very much, Claire. The other two questions concern specifically Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships. Could you please turn to next slide? Thank you. So one of the specific questions, there's more specific questions that I would like to address to Thierry. The first one is if there are age restrictions for individual fellowships, and another one is more technical. We can come to that a bit later. So are there any age restrictions for individual fellowships?
Yes, so no, the answer is no, there's no age restrictions. Concerning the second question, I must say I'm a bit puzzled because, well, it's difficult to answer if we indeed don't understand why, you know, the application was not eligible. So what I would really suggest is that, well, these participants send us, you know, a mail, I mean, explaining the situation, because here, I mean, well, it's a bit difficult to answer why the application was considered not eligible. So I would, you know, I would like to have a bit more background on the case.
Okay, thank you so much. There was also a question to the last agenda item on the Russian National Contact Point for researchers' mobility, addressed to Dr. Pikalova. Do you plan to add a newsletter or subscription option to the website of the National Contact Point to inform Russian researchers of existing opportunities in researchers' mobility and training? So Anna, if you could briefly comment on that.
Yes, we publish information about Marie Skłodowska-Curie grants at our website, and we'll continue to do this, to post all information about this program at our website.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I don't know if or do we have more time for the questions, because there are some more questions coming in the chat room. Do we have more time for answering that? That is a question to the organizers.
I can answer more questions. I don't know. It depends on the availability of my colleagues.
Yes, I mean, to the organizers, because we were supposed to end the workshop at 5, so that was why I'm asking.
Dear colleagues, we have some more 10 minutes. Please, you can go on.
Okay, so let me just read some questions straight from the chat room. So one of the questions is about Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Are applications suggesting a postdoc to carry out some parts of the research in her home country in Russia, in his or her home institution in Russia, welcomed by the MSCA experts?
So, sorry, can you repeat the question? I think Thierry will take it. Is it about the individual fellowship for postdoctoral researchers?
I think it is about it. It doesn't really specify. It's because I'm just reading from the chat room, so it's a bit more confusing now. I haven't had chance to have a look at them. Let me maybe take another one.
Because I mean, the individual fellowships, if that was the question, was related to mobility, the idea is that the researcher goes abroad. There is a mobility dimension. So was the question related, where we asked to confirm whether the researcher was welcome to do his or her research in Russia. Was it the case? If it's, then the answer is no, except these days with the COVID crisis, unfortunately, many people had to go back to their country, and we are being flexible on those rules. But I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bit confusing, but thank you very much for this comment. There is one question that concerns mega grants program. So maybe Mr. Semin could briefly comment on that. The question is, how can foreign researchers based in Europe find opportunities to supervise projects, mega grant projects? Could you please comment on that, Mr. Semin?
So maybe Alexei not available now. I can answer for him. It's very easy because these scientists in Europe should contact with the partners in Russian Federation who ready to accept him on the territory of Russian Federation, like a mega grant holders for establishing a laboratory, and then create application, joint application with him, and send to the site, through the site during the whole time. I talked that deadline is 10th of August. And then the council of this program will get decision about the winners. All application free for all wards. There are no limitation, no restriction for the countries. The most important property is that the applicant should be real great scientist with a very high impact factor, very high Hirsch factor, and some very high level of publication. The only quality basis review, quality basis expertise will be done during the selection procedure.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Anikey. There is also a question about how partnership between European and Russian colleagues contribute to the development of academic rights and freedoms in Russia, and if the academic values are integrated into the partnership agreement. Would anyone like to comment on that?
Dear colleague, if you agree, I shortly answer for this question, and then my proposal that we have already time limitation, and we should go to the end of our meeting. All questions will be collected and answered by my colleagues and our colleagues in contact point and organizers. Be sure that all questions will be answered soon. Concerning this question about the cooperation and politics situation, really the cooperation between the European Union and Russian Federation is very important, because European Union is our neighbors, and we have historical the great contacts, great economical contacts, and great scientific contacts between us. And these two grants, Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action and Mega Grants Program in Russian Federation, rise the great community of the fellows, of the alumni community, and we in ministry use both this community like experts. We invite mega grant holders and Marie Skłodowska-Curie fellows to different experts panel, different councils, different social organizations, social community that help us ministry to create, to rise politics in the field of science and technology in Russian Federation. I think that my colleagues in the European Union and Euro Commission can talk the same, because it's very important to get into account opinion of such famous, such brilliant scientists like mega grant holders and like Maria Skłodowska-Curie fellow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Once again, thank you very much for all the speakers for these clarifications and comments. And now I would like to give the floor back to the co-chairs, Mr. Anikeev and Mr. Bosharov, for final remarks and closure. Thank you.
Lauren, you first or
I think we need to leave the channel, so we have to be very short. I would like to thank everybody, particularly the testimonials, because it's not an easy task. It's not a normal presentation, and it was very lively and encouraging. And thank all those who asked questions. As we mentioned on both sides, we'll be happy to follow up on the questions and make sure that we get very good proposals, both to the MECA grant and to the Marie Skłodowska-Curie. It's the last call on the Horizon 2020, but as you heard from Claire, the next program will keep more or less the same instruments available, and we hope to see an increasing number of good application and selected proposal. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Laurent. I also, from my side, want to say thank you very much to all our panel speakers for very interesting presentation, and also send pass to our participant today. Thank you that you are come to our virtual meeting. Thank you for your interest for these two programs, and I hope most of you can write good application and receive support from both countries for your for expand your scientific careers, increase your scientific skills, and good luck and save your health, because it's very important during our period of pandemic. Thank you very much. I think we will see more and more another time.
Thank you.
That on behalf of the organizers and like co-chairs, I say that our virtual meeting, our webinar will the end and now is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.